Okay. My name is Chris Hicks, and I'm interviewing. Excuse me. I'm referring to your name because it's new to me. I'm interviewing Russ and Lori Rheams. That's how you pronounce your last name, Rheams?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Orangevale residents, and they have a story to tell. So, if you'll start out with your name and the year that you were born, that'll give us a place to start.
I'm Russ Rheams, and I was born in 1947.
Okay.
And I am Lori Rheams, and I was born in 1949.
All right. And where were you born?
I was born in New Orleans.
I was born on Long Island in New York.
Okay. And your parents' names?
Mine were Russell and Rosemary Rheams.
And mine were Jack and Loretta Rodasta.
Okay. And I lost my questions here. Where were your father and your mother born?
Both in New Orleans.
Oh,
And my dad was born in New York City, and my mother was born in Brooklyn.
and do you have brothers and sisters? And if you do, their age?
I don't have any.
He was an only child. Yeah. I have one brother and one sister. They both passed away. My brother was 82 when he passed away, and my sister was 68 when she passed away.
Okay. And their names? Do you
Jimmy.
mind?
Oh, that's fine. My brother's name is Jimmy, and my sister's name is Ann.
And when did you come to Orangevale?
To live? 1990?
To the store.
1990.
We moved into
2010,
this house
I mean,
in
2010.
December of 2009.
Yeah.
The very end of the year. We moved in on the 28th of December. But it was ready and I was in.
And where did you live when you moved here?
Roseville.
Yeah, from Roseville. Is that what you mean? Where do we move
So
from?
you moved to Roseville and then you moved to
Yeah.
Orangevale?
Oh, we've lived in this area for 50 years.
I came to California in 1971,
I came in 72.
and I lived in Rancho in Citrus Heights. One of my youngest son went to Coleman Elementary for a while. I mean, we've always been in this neighborhood.
How did you two meet?
On a retreat. I had been widowed. Russ had been divorced. Russ has 3 children. I have 5. When he proposed, I had 5 children who all lived at home. My mother and father who lived with me. 2 cats, 2 cars, 1 driver. And, we were, married and started the store within 6 months after we got married.
Where did you go to school and when did you graduate?
I went to elementary and high school in New Orleans, and I went to Georgia Tech to college, and I graduated from Tech in '69.
And I went to Catholic school in New York, both elementary school and high school. Was going to school here, Sac City College, and my first husband passed away, and that ended that escapade. I had a full plate, and I just never went back.
Russ, what was your major in college?
Aerospace engineering. And yes, I did finish, and yes, I got the degree and never used it. Never had any desires about the middle of my senior year, but I figured, no way am I starting over. So I took the sheepskin and decided to peddle it any way I could.
Good.
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do?
I was in sales for, from 1969 to
90?
90, yeah, till 90. And then we opened the shop.
Okay. And did you have special friends here at Orangevale?
Okay, you're interviewing us because of us or because of our store?
Well, both.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Your experiences here in Orangevale, living
Okay.
here, and because of your store.
okay, okay. Well, we started making friends in Orangevale right off because of our store. And, because again, we started 6 months after we just didn't live in Orangevale, that was all.
At that time, we lived in Citrus Heights, and we used to take Old Auburn Road down Watchtower, and we just, back way. So we do all the back streets because I didn't want to be on Greenback Lane then if I didn't have to be.
What was the name of your store?
Originally, it was Copy and Color. And in 1999, we renamed it Orangevale Copy.
I'm sorry.
Orangevale Copy Center.
Oh, Orangevale Copy. Okay. You're the infamous Orangevale Copy
Yes.
owners. Okay. All right.
It was interesting when we decided to rename the store. Pat Sir, who used to live here in Orangevale for many years,
You knew Pat, didn't you?
Pat was our CPA. And we looked at her and we said, we need to rename this store. And she, without blinking, she looked and she said, Orangevale Copy. I said, okay, wasn't as interesting a name to me as Copy and Color. I said, why do you say that? She said, people at Orangevale love the businesses say Orangevale. I said, okay. And so Copy and
became
Color
Orangevale
became
Copy.
Orangevale Copy.
All right. Okay.
Lori, is that switch turned on your microphone? Should be towards you.
No?
There we go.
Now it is.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, just skipping back for just a second. What kind of work did your father do, or your mother if she worked?
My father was in sales when I knew him. They were divorced when I was like 8 or 9 years old. He was in sales, but then I understand he moved to Melbourne, Florida, and became a reporter. And yeah, and he covered the space shots to the moon and all of that. And eventually I met him again in the late 90s, or late 90s.
In the 90s, yeah.
Late 90s. And at that time he was retired, of course, and he was living back in New Orleans.
And your mother?
Well, my mother was an accountant and single mom, worked 2 jobs to get me through school, which I really appreciate.
And how about you, Lori?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked for the New York Telephone Company. He had worked for the company for 47 years. Took early retirement, so he retired at 62 because he was sure he wouldn't live that long. He made it to 87. He would laugh at all the years he collected that retirement check. And he said, I made my money off that. I said, yes, Dad, you did,
Okay, what kind of, tell me about your copy store. Do you have a most famous job that someone brought in?
Well, we started the store. Russ had been working for a major corporation, and he promised his clients that he worked with that they would always have good service.
And I was in management, so I felt a responsibility.
And he looked at me one day and he said, they're not going to take care of customers. And he said, I can't take a paycheck knowing that I'm telling people they're going to get good service and I know they're not. And he said, but I'm 42 years old. Who's going to hire me? And I looked at him and I said, you always wanted to start your own business. Why don't we do it? And he looked and said, well, you're okay with that? I said, sure.
I also
So-
said, what do I know? I mean, to start a business. And I had been selling copiers for the last 15 years. How about a copy shop?
And we picked Orangevale because we knew that there was nothing else here, and we knew the area. We lived in Citrus Heights, and so we, having been around Orangevale all of these years, it was familiar territory. And so we decided, let's do that. And as we lovingly say, we started the store with a dream and a prayer. Our dream was that if we take care of people, that's what our job will be. And the prayer was, please let the business fly, that we can make a living off of it. And we did. We had a lot of good years. But what would you say was the most interesting?
Oh, no doubt about it. It was, we probably hadn't been in business for more than a year. And a lady came in who was really into Fair Oaks history. And she was very active in the Fair Oaks Historical Society. Sarah
Goller.
Sarah Goller. Do you know that name? No? Okay.
She was a sweet, sweet lady. She's since passed away.
Yeah. But she brought in this old-looking newspaper one day and said she'd like a copy of it. I said, okay, I can't copy it all as a newspaper, but I can copy pieces. We didn't have the big copiers in those days. And then I looked at it. I was afraid to touch the thing. It was the extra edition of the New York Times from the morning after Lincoln was shot. I was afraid to touch it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they used big words then.
Yeah, and sentences that were a little longer. It wasn't written to third graders. But it was the real
fascinating.
paper. It was scary to touch that thing.
Oh my gosh.
And we copied something else that she had access to. She would bring us the most interesting things. One was stories, old stories that she could remember when the fire department would go out, and her dad was a volunteer firefighter. And he would always say to her, if she was with him, he'd plant her someplace and tell her to stay there. She could watch, but she had to stay there. And she said, and I remember just sitting on a rock, watching all the neighbors come together to fight another neighbor's home that was on fire. And I was told to stay on the rock. She said, that's probably my fondest memory of my dad. People came to the copy shop because we could copy pictures, and every picture has a story. And like you'll notice from the two of us, I think the stories are fascinating. And if it takes up part of my time that I am with you and you come in, well, you're welcome to join the conversation of the story.
Or you can wait.
or wait a few minutes, because I really thought it would be rude to stop somebody in the middle of something. Sometimes we could divide, but sometimes, and Orangevale was good that way. People would come in and they'd say, when did that happen? So it was fun.
We
What-
copied a real piranha at one point. Guy brought this thing in, he'd had stuffed, and he wanted a copy of it. you get weird things.
So, like, we had one gal come in and she had some boudoir pictures done. She was getting married. And she wanted a copy of them. And she had these pictures in her hand like this. And she said, well, I only want Lori to copy them. I was like, okay. And what was so interesting, she wanted one picture blown up for her dad. And I thought, okay, this is different. Until she told me the story. Again, remember I said, every picture has a story. The story was, she had been in a horrible car accident. And she was in hospitals, rehab, everything. The one who got her through all of the rehab was her dad. And she said, my dad knows every inch of me because he's the one who got it so that I could walk, I can use my hands, I can function. And she said, and I just want to show that I am still a beautiful woman, the little girl that he took care of. And you can't make up stories like that. They're just heartwarming. You have the family that comes in, and we had a little person there, and he had this little picture, And I said, what can I do for you? And he says, my dog is gone. We need to make a sign for my dog is gone. So we immediately, we couldn't, I think at that point we were able to scan pictures. In the early years, you did everything by cut and paste. Eventually it became all computer generated. But we took this picture and copied it and, made a flyer for them. And of course, when that kind of thing happened, we never charged anybody for that, because if you have business to do, we're happy to do business with you, but a lost dog is still a lost dog. And so that's coined this joke that we had for years was every time we did a flyer for a lost dog, the dog came home, that somebody found the dog. So we used to say we have a very good track record, but you have to bring the dog into the store when you get him home. And as most of our customers knew, we started out somehow putting candy on the counter. And people would stop in sometimes just to get a piece of candy.
You did.
And we had great fun with the candy. We would change the candy sometimes, and somebody would be like, oh, Tootsie Rolls. Oh, I love Tootsie Rolls,
We didn't put chocolate out after a while. It was
You couldn't keep up with chocolate.
bankrupting us.
And besides, somebody else would eat the chocolate too, because that's his middle name really is chocolate. But so we had, the joke we always had was we had candy on the counter for our two-legged friends, and we had milk bones under the counter for our four-legged friends. And dogs were always welcome in the store, as long as they didn't pee on my floor. If they peed on my floor, you weren't coming back in again. But we had one lady who loved her dog, came in, and we wanted her to give the dog a treat. He was a giant German Shepherd, a long-haired Shepherd. He was beautiful. And, the counter was tall because we were always passing papers. So a low counter would just kill you back. So the counter was intended to be tall so that you didn't have to bend over. So we were like this, tapping the counter for the dog to put his paws on the table. He jumps up on the counter and he's looking down at me like this. And I looked at Susan and I said,
It's high.
Susan, would you get the dog down? I mean,
It was a beast too, but friendly as could be.
yeah, we had funny things. We caught dogs running down the street. We brought them into the store. We had a lady come in who had a cat, and she said, my kid decided I needed a cat. I don't need a cat. And I had cat posters all over the store. She said, here, you take him. And she left. I'm like,
I don't remember that.
yeah. And it was like, okay, I like cats, but I already have two cats. And we found a home. One day we had the door open, and we were on over by the old Lucky's Albertson store. We were located over there. And these two little dogs, obviously a mother and a son, the door was open because the weather was beautiful. They came in. We had this old, ugly couch in the front of the store. All the years we had the store. And they came in, saw the couch, jumped on the couch, made themselves at home. And I thought, whose dogs are they? They have no collars, no tags, nothing. I mean, it was Orangevale. There's something special about the town.
Where was your first store? Where did you
On
open
Main
it?
Avenue, right down from where the new bakery is, in that complex right there, there's an
The old
L-shaped
abandoned
building, and then a
behind Well Sports.
6105,
Yeah,
6105 Main Avenue.
yeah. Or
There was a
6015.
Mercedes dealer in the
6015.
corner.
6015, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it
Was
was
it on the card? No. And then there was a little Mercedes place in the corner. And I forgot his name. Her name was Linda. They owned it, and we subleased from them.
Barry Killer.
Yes.
Barry and Linda Killer.
Keller. And we subleased from them for 3 years, and we outgrew the store. So we moved then to the Albertson Center, and we were there for almost 5 years. And while he was building the center where the store is now, and he came to us and he asked to meet us, and he said, I went to the chamber and asked about businesses who have been in the area who are well respected and well run, and your name came up from the 3 people that were in the office. And we said, wow, okay. He said, so what will it take for me to get you in my center?
Said 10 cents a square foot. Didn't happen.
I was gonna ask.
Well, I thought I might as well just find out how
Might as well
low you'll go. I mean, best landlord you could ever ask for in your life, by far and away.
So we moved the store over there. Now, nobody really understands what it means to move a store. I mean, if you've moved a house, that's bad. But moving a store, remember, you're still in business. And so I had people's jobs in the trunk of my car. So you would come to pick it up. I would have to run out to the trunk of my car and go get it, because if it was in the store, it was going to get packed. And then we wouldn't find it until we moved. But Wahib was just the most amazingly kind, wonderful landlord you could have ever asked for.
He was.
And we were one of the very first ones in the center. Obviously, the store is still there. But the year we moved the store to that location, we had one child getting married on June 7th. We had a different child getting married on June 21st. The second wedding was planned ahead. The first wedding got planned so that they would be home from their honeymoon in time to go to the second wedding. They say thing comes in threes. So remember, we now have the 7th, the 21st. On June 30th, we moved the store.
Oh, boy.
And that night we had a dinner party for all the family because my first husband's mother, his parents were still alive. And they wanted to be there to watch the kids open their wedding gifts.
The same night we had just moved the store.
Yeah. So
We learned one good lesson, though, in moving. You've got all these cases of paper, and I mean 40, 50 cases. Well, the best way to do it is put the paper back into the cases and put the tops on and stack it up. You should always write what it is on the side, not on the top.
because we might have, you came in and wanted blue paper. Well, yeah.
Which blue paper? Which box of blue paper?
Exactly.
If I remember right, your store had 3 locations.
Three, yeah. The first one was Main Avenue. The second one was the old Albertson Center up there where Madison and Greenback come together.
Where Ace Hardware is now.
Yeah, Ace Hardware is basically where our store was. And then we moved over to
The Greenback,
what's the name of the center? I can't remember.
the Plaza.
The Plaza, yeah.
Yeah.
How many years altogether did you run your store?
We
23.
ran it for 23.
23.
Yeah. And
I got very, very sick, and while I was in intensive care, I decided, I want to enjoy the rest of my life. Forget it, let's sell it. She went along with it great, so.
and the interesting thing was that Michelle had worked for us for 7 years. So we call her our other daughter. I mean, you can't work side by side with people all that time and not just fall in love with them, because we're the parents of 8 kids. So for us to float one more in there, that's easy. And so when he got so sick, that was 2012. About 2 weeks later, I'd called Michelle. She knew what was happening. And we were home, and I said to her, "Can you and Josh come over one morning for coffee?" And she said, "Sure." So we picked a day, and they came over and sat on the couch. And I looked at her and I said, "Okay, sweetie, here's the deal." She said, "What?" I said, "We are going to sell the store. Yes, you want it. No, you don't. Pick one. You always told me you wanted the store. I'll give you first shot." She goes, "I want the store." Okay. It took us about 3 months to figure out how to put numbers together well enough that
both
they
of
could
us.
afford to get in and we could afford to get out. And I mean, she doubled the size of the store.
Physically doubled it. It was
Physically
2,500 when we moved in. She expanded to 5,000 square feet now.
She does things that we always special ordered. I mean, she can do them in-house now. I mean, the technology of copying, it just went by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
I mean, you would know, we used to have these giant art books of clip art, and you would cut it out, copy it to reduce it down to the size you wanted it to be, pasted it onto whatever you were working on, and then made your copy.
You mainly scotch taped it because paste would leave edges up on the sides, which would cause shadows. So
You looked at it, and then we morphed into having a copier that literally would call itself in. It had its own phone number and its own line. And all of a sudden, the tech would walk in, and you'd look and you'd go, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "Well, she called me." Oh,
It did.
okay. And they would just walk in the door and fix it. I mean,
Funny.
but the copiers, as the technology changed, and again, you have to grow with the technology, or the business will die. We had to get to the point where we could create things on the computer. It went through this machine called a Fiery, and it went straight then into the copier and did its magic and came out. One of the best funds we had was as they came into these scanning capabilities, you would come in with a copy and you would say, "I need 20 copies." Okay. You would put the copier on the glass, you would make the copy, but you would tell it, "I want 20, I want a proof."
First.
So it would make one copy, and then you had to hit OK if you looked at it. If it was no good or too dark, too light, you just ran it again, made a different one. But it was the best fun in those days to bring the proof back to the client, and they'd say, "Okay, wait a minute, how did you do that?" And we would just look at them and we'd say, "It's magic, just magic."
we brought the original back along with the
Yeah,
proof.
we bring the original back, and then I'd walk back, and they'd be like, "Don't you need this too?" No.
How many employees did you have?
Oh
I
gosh.
think we maxed out at 5 plus ourselves. I think. Might have been 6, but most of them were part-time, let's face it. I mean, it was kids working after school, and
Yeah. We had.
we had a manager and maybe one other full-time person.
At one time, we had to get a new graphic designer. And somebody said to me, "Have you ever considered someone from NorCal Center for Deafness?" I said, "No." "Well, we have somebody, he's a graphic designer. Would you be interested in interviewing him?" "Sure."
She's hard of hearing anyway.
I'm hard of hearing. But if you're in front of me, no matter where you are, you're in my line of sight, I know exactly what you said because I lip read perfectly. So Jeff came and we interviewed him, very wonderful young man. He had limited speech because his vocal cord had been damaged from something else, but he was deaf. He knew sign language. I don't know sign language. I lip read. He doesn't lip read. We figured out really quick how to get along and how to make things work. And somebody said to us one time, "Well, why would you hire somebody who's deaf?" And I said, "Because he's a very good graphic designer.
Yeah.
I can interpret in between." And it gave him a job. And why wouldn't I do that? You're talking to my heartstring anyway. So one time we had this one customer, and she was really witchy. And we were doing a Christmas flyer for her. And remember, we had to X-Acto knife the hole, and we put the picture behind it. And the machines at that point could grayscale a picture, but not the text. It was phenomenal what the machines could do. So Jeff sets the flyer up, X-Acto out, everything, so the pictures will all fit.
Exactly what she wanted.
And she looked at it. She didn't like those borders that went around the pictures. She wanted a different border. So Jeff goes back. Okay, he does a different border. And we went through this for like 3-4 days. Every day it was, "No, I don't like that border either."
And she was getting mean about it.
She finally went back to the first border. And I thought Jeff was going to kill her. Because I said to him at one point, "Don't get rid of all of this, the files. Just keep them all. Because if she comes in one more time, I'm going to tell her, that's it. We've done now 5 or 6 different formats. We're done."
At that time, we really didn't charge for typesetting at all.
I mean,
And so that was a big mistake.
so she finally comes back in. She decides to get the first border that we had started with. Now remember, I know no sign language. So Jeff gives me this sign, and I looked at him and I said, "What's that?" He goes, "A bad word."
Well, he didn't say a bad word. He told you, but anyway.
We couldn't have laughed any harder. I mean, the store was such that, when we would hire somebody, we would tell them point blank, there are going to be times where I might snap at you, or we're going to really kind of get on each other's nerves. All I can tell you after that is I'm sorry. If you cannot accept I'm sorry, then you can't work here. Because I'm not going to go down on hands and knees and beg for forgiveness. I'm just simply going to say, my fault, I snapped, I'm sorry. And I expect that that's the end of it and we go on. And if we can't, then you can't work here.
It sounded like it was something like a family.
Oh, totally.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
We would sit in the back every day and have lunch together. And we had one giant copier. And it was positioned in such a way that our table was on the other side of the giant copier. So you would walk in and not see anybody, but we were all there. And you know, in the era of everybody has to have a lunch hour and you have to have a certain break at a certain time, you know what? We always told everybody, if you want a break, take a break. If you want lunch, have lunch. I mean, it's a small business.
If you want to leave early, leave early. If you want to come in early, come in, whatever. I mean, everybody had a key.
You know, as long as we all got our jobs done, it was fine. But we would sit in the back and we would take turns answering the counter. We didn't keep track of your lunch hour should have been your free hour. We just did what had to be done.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the business was really slow, we would sit back there for an hour and a half. If the business was really busy, you might see us back there. We'd eat 15, 20 minutes. We were back. We weren't moving.
Or sometime we ate on the run.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really tells you what that company was our son bought a couch when he was getting really serious about this gal.
It was the ugliest couch you have ever seen. Old colonial
all right, yeah, it was pretty awful.
brown with horses
Do you
on
remember
it.
the couch? Yes.
It was comfortable.
When we were on Main Avenue, we had so much room we didn't know what to do with it, so we decided, well, we'll stick it there. And problem was that we had just moved our home, so we were using the back of the shop as a self-storage instead of our garage and moving into the house slowly. What do you do with the couch? It wound up in front. And we became known as the place with the ugliest couch in Orangevale. And we were kind of proud of it. I was anyway.
We had customers fall asleep on the couch. We'd have to go over to them like this and say, your copies are done. I mean, we'd have to wake them up.
We actually had a couple of businesses sold on the couch to each other. One customer sold to another. It actually happened. It was crazy.
We had an employee who worked for us, and she had a little boy, and he was sick. He was in daycare. Couldn't go to daycare because he was sick. But not sicky sick, like throwing up sick, but, you know, enough that he couldn't go.
Didn't feel
And she
good.
said, can I bring him to work? I said, sure. Well, he was out cold on the couch. You know, you just never really knew. Like I told you, the two dogs came in and made themselves at home on the couch. It just stayed. We finally gave the couch to the SPCA. They were happy to take it.
Was that who we gave it to?
Yeah. I mean, it was such an ugly thing. It truly was.
The gal that worked for us and then bought us out, Michelle Famstead, she had two big dogs at home. One of them died suddenly. And
they didn't have children yet.
And the other one was just lost. So Lori said, bring Beezy to work. Let's see how it works out. And the only person that dog chased the entire day was a magazine salesman. So I guess it was okay. And to this day, there's been a dog at that shop almost every day.
Every day.
Really?
Yeah.
And, you know, it was so comical.
Became part of the family.
Beezy greeted everybody who came in the door. I mean, he was a black lab. And the thing you always had to be mindful of is you might walk into the store, you're not anticipating having a dog come up to you. And so every once in a while I had to say to Michelle, because you'd see somebody go like this. And I would say, Michelle, call the dog. And she'd say, Bees. And he'd go straight back. And I said, he really just wants to be your friend. And people got used to him. We had a customer who came in, and he was
That's
always...
the only reason I walked in the door.
We had a customer, he was always grouchy, never smiled, never, you know, you'd come in and you'd say, good morning.
Oh, the meanest man in the world?
Not him, but
okay.
but he was just grouchy.
We had names for our
And
customers.
he would come in the store and he would smile because he would drop mail off, and all he wanted to do was pet the dog. Well, the dog would come to him with tail wagging, and he would just smile, and the dog brought out a lot of good things to all of us.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with Beezy. We would sit in the back and have lunch, and Beezy had big, big, dark brown eyes. And somebody said to us one day, "He just adores you." I said, "No, he just adores my sandwich." I said, "All he really wants is my lunch."
It's okay.
And poor Beezy, everybody brought him in treats, including the UPS driver would bring him in a treat. Beezy knew exactly who to go to. And so he got a little on the wide side. So then we would keep like carrots around. And so you would come in and I'd say, and we'd hand you a carrot so you could give the carrot to Beezy because he was getting way too many milk bones, you know.
We got away from your questions.
That's okay, that's all right, because it all makes the story.
Yeah. Does to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any memories of Orangevale as far as, well, besides your own business, other businesses, hangouts, eateries, stores, schools, churches?
Well, we used to have, as a customer, I know, Pathway Fellowship. They're now in the old
L.W. Calder House.
L.W. Calder House. And they used to be over on Central Avenue. Nice people. It was a Episcopal church, I think.
No, Methodist.
Methodist, was that what it was? Okay. Nice people there.
I remember going into the old Capri Market. I remember when the post office was built. And my youngest son was in TK at Coleman. And he did a field trip to the new post office. And I went, and we walked there from Coleman. I mean,
It's quite a walk.
it was. And I remember going through the back of the post office with, you know, a bunch of 5-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds. They were just oozing eyes and, of course, touching everything, which I'm sure made some of the people crazy. But it was so fun because the post office was a big, big deal. I mean, that whole shopping center was a big, big deal because it was new. It was, you know, kind of classied up Orangevale, if you will, because the old Capri Market was just a dump. I mean, you went in there, it was dark, it was dingy. You know, you didn't go in there unless you wanted canned food, because that was not my place to go. But you know, once they opened up that center, it really brought a lot of life to Orangevale. I used to trape all around town, mainly because Tim went to school out this way. I'm always, if I needed things, made a point of finding things. We used to go get cat food over at, then it was called Sicardi's, which is now Western Feed. They were still there. The horse was still there.
Yeah.
Dolly.
Dolly.
That's
right.
I mean, who says Orangevale doesn't have horses?
Did you see Sicardi's first store across Greenback?
No. I didn't
I
know
only
that.
knew them on Greenback.
But across the street?
Yeah, they had 2 stores.
No, I never saw that one. Where
It was
across the
more- It
street?
was more of a warehouse, almost directly across.
No, I don't remember that
No,
at all.
not at all.
Okay.
But we used to have, after we were married even, we had pet rats. And I used to get a lot of my things that I needed for the rats, you know, there. Because my thing is, if I go there or I go to Petco, I would rather do business with another small business.
Yes.
I have gone out of my way to try and find a small business to do things with, because that was my world. I don't mind looking at like in big box stores and things like that, but it gives me my starting point. But if you're going to have something done, we've been really fortunate to find great people. Of course, we knew Brian and Karen Buckley for years, who owned Buckley Heat and Air. Long time Orangevale family. They've now moved to Georgia, and their youngest son, Jake, runs the business. But, you know, you needed something done, you called Brian. Well, when we moved in here, we were in here about 5 years, and I noticed something funny on the roof. And so I called Brian, and I said, "You've got to know a roofer. Who do you know?" And he gave me a name, and I forgot the name of him. I have him in my file. He said, "Long-time Orangevale business, that's who you want." And so over the years, he had been president of the chamber, and we were always involved with the chamber at that point. You knew who to call. If you didn't know a business, you knew who in town to call and say, who do you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I think made Orangevale so unique, was that we all did business with each other, and we referred to other people. And then you stay in touch all these years. I mean, the other day we were at Winco. Who did I run into? Cat Walker. Haven't seen Cat in a while. Had to touch base and hug and laugh and talk about the grandbabies. And, that's how we all knew each other. We knew each other as business owners, not as a business. We knew the owners. But, when you think about what we used to go to, gosh, what was the old Wami Chinese restaurant? It's still there under different owners, of course. The original owners
You
lived
worked there.
I worked there. The original owners lived across the street from me. And because I was a stay-at-home mom, I had keys to everybody's house where that mom worked. And I couldn't put addresses on it, because if anybody ever broke into a house, you didn't want them to know what house that key went to. So they all had something different on them that you knew which house that went to. So one day I was home, and I worked at the restaurant Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. And I was pregnant, and of course, in those days, you really didn't work when you were pregnant out in front of people, maybe at a desk job or something, but I was the hostess. So cashier, hostessing, and then I would help do the books for them. So the people who owned it were Nancy and Nang, and both immigrated from China along with their parents. And phenomenal people, ran the business with a lot of love, great food, and it was one of those things that I knew that little shopping center there because I worked there. So, you get to learn different places. The more you navigate Orangevale, the more people you get to know. Nang has since passed away, but their father worked in the kitchen. And so we would eat dinner every night when we closed the restaurant. And I would come in the back, and his father spoke limited English. I just called him Papa because everybody called him Papa. So I would come in the kitchen, and Papa would look at me and he'd say, "What you eat?" And I would say, "I want kung pao gai." Well, at this point, I'm pregnant with my youngest. And he looked at me, and kung pao gai is a hot food. It's a hot dish with the red peppers. And he looked at me and he shakes his head. He says, "Not good for baby." I said, "It's just fine for baby." But I mean, that's kind of the stuff that went on all around town. I mean,
Do you remember an Asian restaurant at Main and Orangevale Avenue? Very small.
No. That
No.
Main
What
and
was it?
Orangevale Avenue. So over where, we
Right-
cut
right
across
now
to go to the old bridge.
There's a food garden or a
Right.
community
Yeah.
garden there right now.
Yeah.
Oh, on that side of the street.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that at all. That was not my path.
The garden is part of the food bank. Yeah.
Yes.
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 Well, there used on the very corner there used to be an Asian restaurant.
I don't remember that.
Chinese restaurant.
I think that must be
No.
before my time. I don't remember it.
This is back in 62. 60.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't have been
no.
around then.
Oh, okay.
I didn't come until 71.
Then you remember the powwow days.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah. I remember one effort to change it from powwow days because it wasn't politically correct, and that lasted about a year.
People were still going to...
It's Orangevale.
People call things... I mean, we still, years after we changed the name of the store, somebody would sometimes still write a check, copy and color. The bank took it. They didn't care. And we didn't care. To us, it was a good memory. That just kind of said how long you'd been with us. But it was always interesting because all of the things we did in the store, you made relationships. It wasn't a job. It was relationships. The bank that we banked at for the store, one of the tellers, her mother passed away. She had been sick for a short time, so it was expected but not expected. And Gloria called me and she said, I need to plan a program for my mom for her funeral. And I said, I'm so sorry. She said, can I come over and talk to you? I said, sure. And, that was just a way of helping. I mean, because I had been widowed many years ago, and at that point I had lost both my parents, it meant nothing to me to come around the corner to give you a hug to say, I'm so sorry.
It was real community.
Yes.
Yes. Which is why we actually moved residents into Orangevale.
That was the reason we really moved out of Roseville. The Roseville house was the house of our dreams. I mean, it was one story,
was
nice
perfect.
neighborhood.
Perfect.
We had no grass to cut. It was perfect.
But it wasn't here.
It wasn't here. And we lived there for about 5.5 years. And we talked to a friend of ours at a Rotary Club party. And he looked at Russ and he said, Russ, your Rotary Club is here, your church is here, your business is here. Why don't you just move to Orangevale?
And I laughed and said she'd kill me. And end of conversation. On the way home from the party, which it was here in Orangevale,
Again,
the party,
it was
and we had to
35
drive all
minutes
the way
away.
out to.
Everything was 35 minutes away.
And I figured I'll just test the waters. And I said, you'll never believe what Steve said today. What? He was suggesting we move to Orangevale. Let's go. Okay. That was it.
He looked at me one day and he said, but this is the house that you've always loved. I said, yeah. I said, but I love you more. So if you would like to move to Orangevale, I'm happy to go. Wherever you go, I'm happy to go.
Yeah. It was more convenient, but it was more than that. It was getting to Orangevale. Really.
And you're sitting on primo strawberry land.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Now, I
Yeah.
do have to say, we've had a couple of things spring up in the backyard that I don't think are strawberries.
Yeah.
I think they were different
Yeah.
growths. But anyway.
Yeah. This area, when we moved in,
Fortunately, it's legal now. But
yeah, for us it was perfect because we can walk to church. I walked home from the store a few times. We had a friend of mine, and she was in a car accident and did not have rental insurance coverage on her policy. Then she said, can I borrow your car? I said, sure. And so he had a meeting to go to one day, and the weather was nice. And he had to leave early to go to the meeting, and he said, well, how are you going to get home? I said, we'll walk home. I mean, it's 0.7 of a mile from where I parked my car to my front door.
Yeah.
I said, I'll just take a bottle of water and I'll walk home. How many places can you really say that? There's
Yeah.
a lot of whole places you could go to. We've walked to the library on occasion. When he got so sick that time and he had major surgery, we started walking and we'd get out to the end of the driveway. That was as far as we were going. And eventually we made it to the mailbox. And, eventually we kind of kept navigating every day, went a little farther. And so finally, several weeks later, he said, I really want to go to Starbucks. I really want Starbucks. I looked and I said, because that was when it was over here, when Stan ran that one. And it's never been the same. Stan was awesome down there. And the other one is, it's okay, but it's not Stan. Stan knew who you were when you walked in the door. It was just like our store. So anyway, I looked at him and I said, okay, are you willing to walk there? Oh, well, yeah, but we're going to have to rest when we get there. Okay. So we walk to Starbucks, we get our coffee, we sit down to, kind of let him catch his breath and regroup to get ready to walk home. Well, what happens? Everybody else comes into Starbucks and we wind up sitting there for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Just visiting because that's what we do in Orangevale.
Right?
Where the haircut place is, Supercuts over here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dutch Brothers is going in there.
Yes.
I heard. And
My
Quick Quack.
grandchildren are very
and
happy.
Quick Quack.
And a Quick Quack, yeah.
When,
Yeah.
do you know?
It's supposed to be by the end of the year, they say.
Okay.
They better get to demolishing real quick.
Yeah.
Quick, yeah.
It's been, we have grandchildren live here in Orangevale, and Vivian and Michael absolutely adore Dutch Brothers. I told Vivian, she goes, when? I mean, but, so.
You
You'll get more visits from her when it goes in.
You what?
Maybe you'll get more visits from Vivian. When
Yeah, probably.
Well, Vivian is hilarious because she will send me a text. Nana, are you free tomorrow morning? Can I come over and have coffee? I mean, she's 20 now. She'll be 21 this year. It's like, how awesome is it that a grandchild just
Yeah.
texts you and says, "Can I come visit?"
Yeah.
I mean, she came over one day. She wanted to make bread, and I used to make bread for years. I said, "Come on, I'll teach you how to make bread." So she came over, and we were in the kitchen, and we were just making bread. We were having a heyday. And I said, "You should have an apron on because you're going to get flour everywhere. You just can't help it when you make bread." And so I said to her, I pulled open the drawer, and I gave her an apron. And I said, "This is one that my mother made. So you're a great-grandmother." I said, and when we were done, I said, "Vivian, would you like to take that apron home?" "Really? And my great-grandma made it?" I said, "Yes, she did. She made it for me when I was pregnant, which was why the strings were so long." Yeah.
You asked
Vicky
about,
worked for me for a while too.
Yes, she did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
in school, finishing up her degree. I mean,
Great.
it's amazing how you watch children grow up, and you don't know what your grandchildren are going to do. You don't even know what your own children are going to do.
That's true.
I look at the grandchildren, and one of them works for a theater company, and she designs sets. Katerina, Vivian's older sister, happy as a pig in a poke. We saw her at Christmas time. She had this picture, and I said to her, "What is that?" She said, "It's a bird." I said, "Well, it looks big." She goes, "Oh, Nanny, it took the entire length of the warehouse
Whoa.
when they opened this thing." And she said, "And you see how big the belly of the bird is?" I said, "Yes." She said, "There's a grand piano in there."
Oh my gosh.
I said, "What are you going to do with this thing? Because there's no theater big enough."
Even in Vegas, we said.
I said, "There's nothing big enough for this bird to be in." She said, "Oh, it's not going to be here. It's going to Dubai."
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Do you get to go with it?" She said, "No, not this time." But she said, "Probably by next year, I would get to go when they." She said, "It'll be, boxed up to be shipped,
Yeah.
and it will be more than 100 crates."
Wow.
She said, "Of these great big crates." So, who knew what grandchildren were going to do? So,
You asked about old businesses. Of course, the oldest I remember was, of course, Charlie Clark Keaton Air. I kept hearing about Charlie and got to know him a little bit through there. And then when I went on the chamber board, which is a story in itself, I'm brand new to the chamber board. What was it, 92, 93, something
probably
like that?
92. Because
I got elected to the chamber board. I'm new in business, still a couple of years, but Charlie and the gal that had the framing shop, I can't remember her name.
Liz?
No.
No.
Liz Craig, you mean?
Yeah.
No, she had a photography studio, not a framing. This was
eventually, Ron
a custom in
and
Cable Park.
his name was Ron. I forgot what her name
Yeah.
was. They did eventually move to the Cable Park Shopping Center after Cable Park opened. They did beautiful, beautiful framework. They've done like that one back there on the wall with the plates. I could go into her. Beth and Ron.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But Charlie and Beth, they were looking to elect the new board, and they had the president picked out. Downey Sears wanted to be president, but she wasn't at the meeting. But she wanted to be president. But they needed a vice president. Somebody had to and they talked me in, there's nothing to do, don't worry about it. You can be vice president. There's nothing, just back up Downey, that's all. After 3 months, the installation comes along, and I wind up as president because Downey Sears had never shown up. And speaking of L.W. Calder's, we were there for the installation, and Charlie bought me a drink, and he's laughing his head off, and finally said, "You really bought that story. Downey is a town in Southern California, and Sears is Mr. Roebuck's partner." They couldn't find anybody for president, so they cooked up this story.
Oh my gosh.
There is a sucker
And
born every
I
minute.
bought into it.
I mean,
Oh, man.
But that was, well, you've got to have interviewed Charlie,
Yes,
I'm
we
sure.
did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Charlie had this form, and he ran it on cardstock, and
Oh,
it was
gosh.
when the text came in to check your heating and air. Well, it was the copy of 100 copies later, and if you know anything about printing, each generation of copy
Goes
gets
downhill.
worse. It loses a little something. It got to a point one time, I said, Charlie,
couldn't read
there is no way that anybody could read this form. Oh, no, I show them what it is. They're good. So finally, we get the bright idea. We're going to reset this form for him. And oh my goodness, the games we played, and, you know, Charlie, what is that? Let me think on that. I said, you don't even know, you know. So we redid this form. So we became really fast friends with Charlie and Marcia. And so we had decided in the Rotary Club one year, we were going to name Clark Heating and Air as Business of the Year.
No, we were naming Charlie Citizen of the Year.
Citizen of the Year. So we have to figure out how we're going to lie to get him to the meeting. So,
It's a surprising.
so because we wanted to be a surprise. So I get this bright idea. I said, I'll handle it. I'll handle the lie. I'm good at this, I think. Okay. I've got to keep a straight face when I do it, too. So I said to Marcia, this is what's going to happen, and I need your help in getting Charlie to the club meeting. She goes, what do I need to do? You know, Marcia. And I said, so I'm going to go tell Charlie that you're getting an award, and his job is to get you there. And she
Secretly.
goes, oh, okay, this is good, you know. And so that became the lie, that Charlie was going because Marcia was getting this award for all of her work in the Orangevale community, when in fact Marcia was getting him there. And then fast forward a few years later, she comes in the store one day and she says, I have a favor to ask. I said, fire away, my friend, what can I do for you? And I said, legal, of course. She said, oh, it's all legal. I said, okay, good. So fire away, what is it? And she said, I want to kidnap Charlie. I said, okay, what are we doing? She said, well, it's our anniversary in 2 weeks, and I want to go away for the weekend, and I want to kidnap Charlie. I need you to help me kidnap him. Okay. I mean, you can't make up stories about the relationship that we so endeared to us.
Yes.
That having the store, because once you take the time to listen to people's stories,
Yes.
you see, it builds that whole bond. So when someone
yes.
comes in, like she wants to kidnap her husband, I thought this was hilarious. Let's bring it on. I'm game. What do we have to do? You know, I mean, you couldn't.
Charlie is a member of the quartet in Folsom, don't you?
Yes,
Oh
he came
yeah,
to the
we've
shop.
been to his shows. Yeah.
Yep, he
He's
came to the
great.
shop several times. One time for my birthday, a couple of times for Valentine's Day. I mean, that's what Orangevale is. And that's what I think, if we're going to have businesses come in that are not owner businesses like we all were, you know, the small businesses, then somehow the businesses that do come in, even if they are part of corporate America, they have to be taught how to buy into the dream of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes the town unique to what it is.
Have you interviewed Bob Klaus?
Yes.
Yes. Because that's an old business
Yeah.
that I remember. And Bob sold out to Mitch. Mitch just moved. He's up in Washington now. But I guess he's still got the place open.
I don't know.
But it's in Roseville.
Yeah. But, you know, you ask about old businesses. I mean, that's how we all got things done. If something had to happen in town, a lot of us would just get together and make something happen. When we first started hosting the chamber mixers, we would host one a year. My friend here decides, I said, what do you want to have at the mixer? You know, in those days, they used to bring all the booze in, and whoever had it supplied all the food. And obviously, we were not a restaurant, so we could supply paper, but you can't really eat paper. Doesn't taste good. And so we had to have, you know, whatever food. He goes, well, would it be too much trouble to make deviled eggs? Really? Okay. Well, when I say deviled eggs, and in those days, the chamber mixers were a big, big deal. And there were easily 100 people. And so, okay, so we are going to make deviled eggs, along with all the other food that we had, because if a little food is good, I'm half Sicilian. If a little food is good, a lot of food is better. And you can never run out of food, because that's bad. So, I bought a flat of 5 dozen eggs and made deviled eggs.
Oh my gosh.
We brought in tray after tray.
God.
And every year,
Absolutely.
we hosted once a year. and he would say, "Can we do deviled eggs again?"
I like deviled eggs.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it, it would be a good idea. I know it's a long distance phone call, but that doesn't make any difference anymore. But if you wanted to do one by phone, Liz Craig and Jeff Mall, they're in Hawaii now, but that's two old businesses in this town.
Yeah.
She owned a photography shop and he owned Miles Lakeview Glass. You remember them?
I remember the name, but where was he located?
Main Avenue.
He was on Main
Half a
Ave,
block off of Greenback.
Okay.
Half a block north of Greenback.
All right, that's why.
on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's now a studio for junior Broncos cheerleaders, little
Yeah.
cheerleaders.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But,
But they can tell you a lot about old Orangevale.
yes.
They really could, both of them.
Oh, write your name down. Did you write your name down?
I'll give you their phone number if you want. And
Okay.
Liz
Yeah, I have
Craig and Jeff Mall, and they got married and moved to Hawaii. And that
But
was
we
that.
saw them a couple of years ago when we were there. And we picked up just like old times. We just started reminiscing, telling stories, just laughing because, you know, like I said, I can't say it enough times. Orangevale is just unique.
Yes.
It's not a big city. It's not like Folsom where half the people don't know. It's kind of like we say, you know, in our Rotary Club, we were basically 35 members, 33, somewhere in there. We all know each other. And so it's a big deal when you come in and you go, the dog is really sick. Well, we'll all start making sure that everybody knows that the dog is really sick. To check up on you and say, you okay? You know, and we make a point of that, even for our members like Bud Walmer, he's another one. He had Walmer Automotive, did engine, rebuilding of engines. Bud is now 90, and his health has deteriorated a lot.
An awful lot.
He can't focus on a lot of things. We had him for his birthday, as is our custom. I have him every year for his birthday. And I said to him, what do you want for birthday dinner? I said, I'm going to give you two choices because I know they're your favorite, red beans and rice or jambalaya. And he's, without missing a beat, he goes, jambalaya. Okay. But, you know, we make a point of staying in touch, but we all know each other. Whereas you go to a club like the Sacramento Rotary Club that's got over 300 members, they only know the people they sit at the table with.
Yeah.
You know, here in Orangevale, you can go to almost any store of small businesses, I should say. You know who they are. I mean, I had something shipped to the store because I had ordered it. I didn't want it to come to the house. I was worried I might not be here. I had it shipped to the store. And I happened to stop by the store to tell Michelle that you're going to get this box and, you know, just give me a heads up when it arrives. But this way, somebody has to sign for it.
Right.
And they can't leave it on the door and I can have it somebody steal it. And one of the other customers looked and said, you can do that? And Michelle said, well, sure, if you'd like to drop something off here, have something to send here, we don't mind, we'll call you. I mean, it's just, that's the
They go the extra
neighborliness.
miles.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's the main thing I'd really like you to know about the business was we built it on the golden rule. If you take care of people, they're going to come back. And we didn't make a lot of money, but we made a decent living, and that's all we wanted, to be able to take care of people and treat them right.
But, you know, we've gone
used
to
to-
customers who passed away and gone to their funerals. They were still important people to us.
Used to have a neighbor, Joe Upton Villa, he was a chiropractor. And at one point, I was thinking about selling, and he said, it'll never fly. I said, what do you mean? And he said, Russ, you are the business, the two of you guys. He said, I can go anywhere and pay 7 cents for a copy. Not anymore, but anyway.
In those days, yeah.
But I can't laugh anywhere else while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to take care of people. That was it.
And that's the mother in me says, somebody comes in, especially if they're dealing with something that's heartbreaking. You want to be able to say to them, let me take some of the burden off. If I can just take that portion away from you to say, don't worry about it. I'll send you a proof. Let me know if it's okay. And one time we were doing one for a lady. Her mother had passed away, and I said to her, "What color paper do you want this on?" And she was just in tears. She said, "I don't know." I said, "What was your mother's favorite color?" She said, "Pink." And she liked pink roses. I said, "Then that's what I'll print it on." You had to come around to ask the question differently,
Yeah,
because
right.
you had to share the grief that person was going through. Years ago, I was at the store. We didn't own it. And Michelle had a customer come in, and I was standing by the front counter, and she looked at me, and I watched her go by. I thought, I know her. And remember, I said, I'm hard of hearing and I lip read, so I'm very mindful of how somebody's mouth moves. And I looked at her, I said, I know you. She goes, I'm Barbara Banks. I went, oh my goodness. We were friends when both of our husbands were in the military, stationed in Thailand. And as a group, we were called the Waiting Wives. We were married, but we weren't. We had husbands, but we didn't. And every month we all got together and passed time because none of us had a husband.
Right.
But we still needed to go out and do things and have fun. And so I came around to give her a hug, and she looked at me, and she kept looking at the business card. I said, you're wondering why my name is Rheams and not King. Yeah? I said, well, God called Bob home. I didn't have anything to say about it. And over time, I have remarried. And she goes, she said, I didn't think you guys got a divorce. I said, no, we didn't. And so we went back and forth and bantering. And I said, the last time I saw you, you had one child. What'd you finish out at? She said, I have 2. And so, okay. She said, well, when I saw you had 2 boys. I said, well, I finished out with 5. I said, but now I have 8. What? And so I said, well, Russ took me with 5 children. I took him with 3 children. And we decided after we got married, we took all the kids, we put them in age order. So the oldest stayed the youngest, the youngest stayed the youngest, and everybody else got smushed somewhere in between.
And remember the old TV show 8 is Enough took place in Sacramento.
Oh, yeah. And so finally she looked at me, and as I say, it was many years ago, and she said, well, do you have grandchildren? I said, yes. I said, we have 8 and 1 on the way. She said, well, how many are yours? I said, 8 and 1 on the way.
That's the way we look at it.
I said, you walk into my house and some kid yells Nana. You don't know whether they're biologically mine, biologically Russ's, or biologically not, neither one of us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. My name is Nana. And, but
Back to the thing about taking care of people. Next time you go into a store and they treat you rudely, I'll tell you a story that they ought to try to remember. Back in the very early 90s, I was president of Little League. And, I was treasurer of Little League. It was before then. And I realized how tough it was on a youth sports outfit to make ends meet. And so we set up a special pricing for youth sports. And it went into any nonprofits eventually. But it was 3.5 cents a copy, or 3 cents a copy at that time. And people were really good. They'd tell you these are for Little League or whatever, and these are. We had somebody from the Orangevale, the Tiger Sharks, the swim team, and she used to come in and she'd make 1 copy, and I'd charge her 3 cents. And another time, once in a while, she'd come in and make 2 copies, so it was 6. Didn't even get the tax. And this went on for maybe once every few months for probably 2 years. And then her husband showed up one day, and he was a product manager for Merck. Gave me all of his business because we had taken care of his wife. You think it doesn't come home?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
we would travel sometimes, and
think it
the
was
joke
Merck.
we had some terrific employees over the years. And the nervous Nelly over here would be like, we should call the store. We should see how they are. Okay. And I'd say, finally after a while, I'd say to him, would you quit calling the store? And he said, why? And I said, because the first one's going to lie and the second one's going to swear to it. So they're going to just say, oh, everything's lovely. You'll find out when you get home.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything. So we would just laugh at it. And we would come home and somebody would come in the store and they'd say, where were you guys? We were here. Were you gone? We said, yeah, we were on vacation. And your first thought is, what happened? I mean, you can't help it. And they go, Michelle took such good care of us while you were gone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is nice to hear. You know, and that's how you know when we decided to sell, that's how we knew Michelle was the right fit. She doesn't do things all the way we did, but she still cares. She'll still go whatever the mile is that you need her to do, because that's what we taught her. And I just look at it and go, if we could just take time and stop it, how much better off we would all be. And like I said earlier, I might be helping you because we're planning a funeral, and you just have to wait a few minutes. Because my thing is, everybody knew when they came in the store, if we had a funeral and it came in today and it has to go out tomorrow because sometimes because of religious situations or whatever, I might have promised the flyers to him by 10. I will pick up the phone maybe and say, hang on till 11. I got a funeral. I got to get it out first thing in the morning. We would go in early, but we'd do everything we had to. But my customers understood. We were there, and that's what happens. And we all had to take a turn and bend a little bit.
Would you mind giving me Liz Craig and Jeff's phone
Yeah.
number?
You got it handy?
I don't know. I probably do.
Now that I'm thinking, I hope I do. I know.
If not, I'll message her tonight. She'll send
Yeah.
it to me. Yes. The last name is Moule, Moule.
Oh, that's for me to cut.
To
here.
stop?
I want
Yeah.
her phone number on.
Yeah, I don't either. Liz's, I believe it's Liz's number. Her cell number is 916-416-7595. Now, I have a home number. I don't know if they still have a landline, though. So let me give you that as well.
Okay.
808-572-3480. And they live on Maui.
Okay.
But if there's anybody else that you're trying to, get hold of, I don't know if you're aware, we have 2 new priests now at Divine Savior. Father Roman retired the end of June, which we will all miss him horribly because he was here for 18 years and
Oh, wow.
just amazing. Told the lousiest jokes we ever heard. They were so terrible. But the 2 new priests have come in, seem very, very nice. We met them the other day. But, the community changes.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't asked that you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
No.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank
like
you.
I said, we had a lot of fun times.
It sounds like it.
Even to the point that when Michelle had Maddie, who was her daughter, we joked about all the things that got put on a copier. And I said to Michelle, not even missing a beat, I said, you need to put Maddie on the copier and take a picture. I think this is important. And so she sent out her birth announcements with Maddie all wrapped up on top of the copier on the glass, I mean,
How funny.
it was just appropriate.
Yeah.
But, the business just continued that same way because when she was pregnant with Maddie and again with Cody, everybody followed the pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
Because, she was in the early time of her pregnancy, she would go to the back and sleep on the floor. She said, I got to take a nap for an hour. I can't function. And she had a pillow and an old blanket back there, and she would go. So you'd come in and ask for Michelle, and they'd say, "Oh, she's out of the office at the moment," And then, when we would go in, Maddie would be in a bassinet, and copiers are going, phones are ringing, and that baby's just sleeping, But then, it would happen that somebody would have something to do, and all of a sudden she'd say, Maddie would wake up, and I'd say, "My turn," my turn. Just not as much fun as the dog, but, Sophia is still at the store. She's getting really old. But
Okay, well,
I don't think of anything else offhand, but
okay. Well, we certainly appreciate you speaking with us and sharing your memories and your experiences and your philosophies of life. Let me tell you, those are important.
Yeah, and you can't
thought
put on we didn't tell you that one of the things we had in the store besides the piranha with stuff, we did have a live ferret once in the store. I had never seen one, and the customer had one. Of course, they were illegal in California.
Yeah.
And
we
so they
still
brought
are.
this ferret in, and we all got to play with the ferret. I mean,
Oh, my goodness.
You like cats.